Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. I'm doing an August update, August 2019, and I figured I would start in the entranceway to my layout room, which is kind of narrow. I wish it was a little bigger, but it is what it is. What I'm going to do is take you section by section and kind of give you a brief update on what I've been working on. I've done a lot of work in August and still continuing, but I will be traveling in the next week, so I'm going to have a little downtime to edit this video. So I figured I get the footage in now, and then I'll put this out for you guys to check out. So I'll be back and I'll take you to the first section. So as usual, I like to start in this section here because it's kind of like my hub. This is where I have all control of my layout, including the JMRI panels, and also I have all my electronics under here, under the benchwork with my laptop. I did have a programming track that I had hanging here, but when I added the fascia, the height interrupted the track. It was a loop so that I can program and speed match and just kind of break locomotives in. But I had it so that it was like a flip up thing, and then it actually became too close to this, so the locomotives were hitting the fascia board. So I took that out. I gotta find another location for that. But it was nice when I had it because it was all local. Everything was right here. So what I did is I left my little charging dock here for my old iPhones, and that's basically what I use for throttles. But everything is nice and neat, and I like the way it's all laid out. So anyways, nothing very new here, more scenery work than anything. But before we get to the scenery work, I did want to say that I got some advice from a buddy of mine for JMRI. What was happening is that when I would turn on the layout, the decoders, the stationary decoders for the turnouts would kind of go a little bit berserk and start switching everything all over the place in random orders. I'm sure it was an initial setting where like I had to set it as closed or open or whatever. But a buddy of mine recommended that I would that if I set a route on JMRI, so that when I open the program, it automatically sets that route. Basically, I'm resetting the layout. So sometimes when I'm finished with a session, just running trains randomly, I leave turnouts in the place where I was meaning to go in that session, and then I just turn it off and leave. So the nice thing is that the next time I come to the layout and I open JMRI, it resets everything, and all the turnouts basically go to the route that I want, which is mostly closed positions for the main line. So yeah, JMRI is working perfectly. I did have a little bug over here, but it's, as you can see, it's out now. That last section that just turned off was like flashing. There was some kind of conflict there, so I was able to get rid of that. And now it's working nicely. This is the upper level. This is the lower level. The lower level had one glitch also right on the bottom of the short line, which is this little section here. I also figured that out. I rewired that so that it would work correctly. So that's gone. So yeah, that's some progress that I made with my block detection. And like I've said in previous videos, it's nice when I have people controlling this for me, because now it's cleaner and there's no conflicting things. I don't have to explain that some sections aren't working. It's all running beautifully now, so that's good. Now back to the scenery of this section. If you haven't seen my videos in the past, this is basically like a little industrial area with a paper plant. This is a paper company. This is like a chemical building that actually supplies the chemical they use for making the paper. Furniture company here. So they receive some lumber, and then there's a box car that that is used to deliver the furniture. And then there's like a transfer building here. So I use this kind of like a transitional yard. There was like I forget the word that they use for that, but it'll come to me. Anyways, yeah. So as trains come by, they can drop off two pretty decent long string of cars here, and they can, you know, it's an interchange. That's what the word I was looking for. An interchange. It's a small one, but it is an interchange. And I do have a little arrival departure thing here so that I can also drop some cars off and do some switching. And it also acts as a runaround. Using the main line, but it does act as a runaround so I can, you know, access any facing turnouts in this industry. So the only new thing here basically is that I finally decided on what I was going to make this industry here. Now this industry, what I want this industry to become is a building that basically accepts covered hoppers, like you know, probably 14, 15 covered hoppers. Now you're going to look at this and say, well, where are you going to put them? This door opens up. Let me just show you that real quick. I used like Lego gear reducers and things like that to open this up. So this allows the door to open up slowly using a servo and the gearing from the Legos. And then right now I have boxcars in there because I don't have enough covered hoppers to actually you know, fill up that whole space. But it basically goes from here all the way to the end of the wall, inside the wall. I had this little pocket here because, you know, the roof line is like that. So I was able to make a nice long track, and I have an access door here, which is basically like some crawl space. So this whole latch opens up and allows me to get in there if anything happens. What I also did is I added a, there are my dogs. It's like a signature for me for these videos. There's always some barking going on. I added this little kind of like a traffic light, and it's hooked up to an infrared sensor at the end of the rail. So that allows me to know that I've reached the limit of the rail. Since I can't see it, you know, when the last covered hopper hits the back there's a sensor pointing this way that detects it, and so it allows me to see that. So you know what, I'll try to show you real quick how that works. I'm just gonna put a card here so I can grab the boxcar. Just gotta be able to latch it first. So what you'll see is that as soon as the last car on this string of cars clears the sensor, this light will go to green, telling me that there's clearance in the back. So it's basically just to give me a limit point as I'm backing cars into this facility. So let's see that work. See, so it's right now it just cleared the back of the track, and that would be if I was going in, it would tell me you've hit the limit pretty much, so you can't go back any. Well, I have a little bit of room for error there, but it's not a lot, and you know, it's got to be enough so that you don't derail the car inside. So I'll just show you. I'll do this quickly so you can see how many cars fit in there. But basically, like, it's like 14 of these hoppers, or you know, these box cars are longer, so that's why they're taking up more room. But that's basically it. So obviously when I would be delivering this, it would be going a lot slower, and then when I get around here somewhere, I'd watch for that light, and that's when I would detach the locomotive. So that's it, and then, you know, obviously you close the door. It's a little noisy, but I don't care. And that's that. Now, the real reason why I was even here to begin with wasn't to show you that. It was to let you know that I've decided that this was going to be a PVC factory, like for, you know, PVC piping or conduits, that kind of thing. From what I understand, they receive a ton of plastic pellets to make their product, obviously. So I figured that would be a great name for, you know, for this, or a great setting for this facility. I don't know what it's actually going to be called, but it's going to be some kind of PVC company. So that's that. All right. So the only other thing that's new in this section Well, there are two things. I added lighting to this building, as you can see. And at some point in this video, I'll turn all the lights off so you can see all the lighting I've done so far. I'm nowhere near being done with the lighting yet, but oh, my smoke came up. I did add it to this building, which I thought came out pretty nice. And I also added a lot of the piping here. I kind of finished everything off. I did a lot of weathering, both up here and down on the side of the building. The only thing that I'm missing right now is the steps to the front entrance there. But everything is pretty much done. I am going to detail the roof a little more, kind of like the way I did this one and this one. I thought that came out pretty nice. And I think it adds a lot more realism when you detail roofs like that. That looks a lot better than just a plain black rooftop like that. So I still have some work to do here as well. So that's number one. And the second thing I added, which is simple but it actually helps me, is that on this runaround track, it's very tight. I actually measured it so that I can get exactly the biggest string of cars that would fit in any of these facilities. So it's basically like 3 50-foot box cars. But I did need some kind of mark so that I knew how close I can get here without fouling up the other tracks. So that's what I did here by painting the ties, which I believe that's what they do in the real world anyway. So yeah, so that's it for that. So this is the first section. I have my trains running, by the way, just so that I can show you that they are running. And they're running really smoothly. I just have the sound off right now because I don't want it to interfere with my voice. So that's the first section. I'll take you to the next section in just a bit. All right, so this is the second section of my layout, which is the yard, which also includes a few other things. But before I get to that, I wanted to just show you that I was able to add all the fascia on this side. I only have one little panel left over there. This was already done on this side here, but I added all of this, including the vents for the AC. That's like a standalone AC unit because I don't have any windows due to the scenery. And I went all the way around, and obviously I tied it in with the scenery along the way. So anyways, going back to this section, this is the yard. As you've seen in previous videos, you know that these are my arrival departure tracks here, and this one also for the front end of the yard. These are my access roads for the cars and for the maintenance vehicles and stuff. My yard ladder is located here. I have 6 tracks on my yard ladder, and they're very long, so I can get some nice long trains here if I need to classify, so I don't have to break them up that much. And I also have my rip track, which comes in through here and goes over to this shed here, which is part of it. This door is animated. It goes automated. It goes up and down using a servo that's inside the building. But I don't have it hooked up right now, so I can't show it to you. So the rip track has 2 tracks to it, and then over here there's a little siding, kind of like part of the rip track, but it goes back into the arrival departure, and that's for the caboose drop off and pickup. Before we get too far into the yard, this is my rented space for the coal facility, which is one of the only sections I haven't started yet, but it's behind me. And as you can see, I like to run very long coal trains, so I'm trying to make sure I have enough space to switch out, cars or whatever, just long strings of coal cars. But I can just use it as regular yard space as well. But I decided to make this black ballasting here so you can tell the difference between what's territory, like yard territory or not. So that's nothing new, but just wanted to show it to you. The yard hasn't really changed. The only thing that has changed is that I finally finished my fueling facility. Well, I shouldn't say finished, but it's definitely looking more like a fueling platform. I got the little cranes, fueling cranes, and I did weather and split up the the concrete here to make it look like blocks of concrete rather than just that. I might want to do that here also, but because I like the way that looks. So I did a bunch of weathering there as well. My sand towers are now in place and they're glued because they were just kind of sitting there. And then this thing that I've always had here, I also glued in place. And I finally painted these so they look a lot more weathered than the bright yellow, which some people are complaining about, saying that all my pictures look pretty good, except for the fact that those things were like glowing bright yellow. So yeah, obviously I still have stuff to do with tanks, and I want to put some little guardrails and things to make it look a little bit better. But it's getting there, coming along. Now the big addition here was the fact that I didn't have a real panel in place. I had just something similar to this. It was just like a temporary thing made out of like masking tape, basically with painter's tape. But I was finally able to design and fit a real panel, so you can see this is Rhythm Yard, and this I basically made on a Word document, like a Microsoft Word. And what I did is I took the all the servo testers are actually attached to the back of the panel, and then I just made these little extensions with just using like little styrene piping, so that I can actually grab onto them a little bit better than the little black nubs that I used to use before that. So pretty happy with the way this came out. I'm still going to add a few more things here, because when I'm by myself, I need access to the mainline controls as well as the servos. So this is your on switch for the servos, and then basically when you twist these, you get your change. So let me just show you one for now. Like this one here is a crossover between the arrival departure and the engine line, the engine parking track. So as I twist that, this is the crossover right here, you're going to see that both turnouts will switch. And like I said in other videos, I like that you can do it slowly if you want. I mean, these are spring loaded, so you don't see it, but for example, one of the yard ladder turnouts, trying to find which one I'm doing here. So right here, you can see that I can do it very, very slowly if I feel like it, which would be, representing somebody switching that manually, throwing it with like a backsaver, kind of like what this guy is doing here. So that would not be a smooth transition. That would take pretty much like 2 moves. You'd have to get it up kind of vertically and then push it down to switch it. So that's just me and my nerdy attempt to be more realistic. But some of them I left spring loaded because I just don't trust that they're gonna shift all the way. So that's why you'll see that some of them snap and some of them don't. But oh, I forgot to show you. I did get one of these end of train thread things, which I'm pretty happy with. I think this is called a Firefly, and it feeds off the trucks, so it's using track power to light up, not a battery. So I don't have to worry about changing batteries. It's okay. I'm not crazy about it, only because the only thing I don't like is that it drags a little bit. So in order for the contacts to make the light work, they're rubbing up against the wheels. So it's a little bit it drags a little bit when you pull the train, like enough to like potentially come off the tracks if it's a little too much. So I don't know if there's a way to adjust that so it rolls a little bit better, but I'll play with it. So that's basically all that I've done in this part of the layout. And also, the lighting has already been put in place, so I'll show you that when I show you the rest of the layout. Okay, I'll be back with the next section. All right, so in this section, there's a few things I want to show you. There's 3 facilities, and there's like a parking area kind of thing that I'm working on. So we'll start here with the brewery. The brewery, there's nothing new here. This has been in place for a while. I just love showing this little corner here because I love the way the background gives it that impression of distance. So when I take photos here, it really looks like it's, very far away, back where the mountains are. So that's that, but nothing new. Just simple, covered hopper for whatever they're using to make the beer, and then a boxcar to be delivered here to the platform so they can load up the crates of beer or whatever. But nothing crazy. I do have to, finish the roof and other little things, but moving on. So over here, my idea was that this access road that's coming from the yard crosses over. It's not supposed to be like a major road. Obviously, it's just a little access road that turns into kind of like a gravel, dirt type road over here. I tried to add some like puddles and muddy water over here from rain, and then it crosses over this road here. And over here, what I wanted to do was like just like a dirt type, beat up kind of parking lot for, trucks to park and equipment to be dropped off and that kind of thing, like a maintenance storage, but not like a big building or anything like that. I might put like one of these DPM buildings, but a smaller one here somewhere with like garage doors and things like that, just to store things, but nothing major. I have this now in place, but that's just to kind of give me an idea of where I want to put the structure. And then obviously I have to finish the ground cover here and add the fascia, but this is the other part of the section here. I was gonna do, all right, hold on, let me start over. So this is a recycling, like a metal recycling facility. I made these loads of scrap metal from scratch. I just kind of took a bunch of things that I had left over and painted them and weathered them and all that stuff. And then obviously this receives and delivers gondolas. So these are empties, but I do have one on the train, on my manifest train right now that's full with a load. In fact, I'll show you that real quick. So this train picked up, or is dropping off, I should say, this load here. And I thought that came out real nice. I love the way that came out. And the load actually comes out, there's I don't know if you can see, if you look real closely, I don't know if I can pick it up here. There's actually a nut right there, under that, right there. And what happens is, you take a magnet and you put it right over that nut, and it pulls up the load as a whole. It's like this whole thing is like a styrene plate. It just kind of pops up. And I do have the inside weathered and that, so that when I do pick it up, it still looks realistic. So going back to the facility, it's basic. It's one track, and this is where like trucks can do some kind of transfer of material. This is the office, and in the office, you have a scale. So, well, not in the office, but there's a scale here for the trucks to pull into, and the office would obviously give them clearance and tell them what weight they're carrying, and then they could dump it out in the back here, and that's what this train is used for, to kind of move things around. And that's eventually going to be a conveyor belt that dumps more stuff out there. Maybe just piles of like metal shavings and things like that. But that's basically the scene. I made these cement barriers from a windshield wiper blade. Like the top part of it peels off, and then I just painted it gray, the same gray that I use for the roads, and that's basically it. I mean, I really didn't. I can weather them, but they kind of do it by themselves. Like they create these little like creases and things like that from the rubber. So it kind of works itself out. But I can add more if I want to, obviously. But I thought that came out pretty neat. I was gonna put a conveyor belt system over to the center of the Y, but then I feel like it starts to get a little bit too toyish. Like realistically, there's not enough space here for cars to come in and out and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna make this like just woods and grass and bushes and things like that, and use that. Plus, it's a pain when you have overpasses to clean the track. So that's what I'm going with. That's the access road here, and that's basically that section. Now, I'm going to show you this upper level facility, which I worked really hard on, because I don't know if the camera picks it up, but it's hard to reach up there. It's actually pretty far, so it's like a arm's length for me to even get to the beginning, to the front part of this thing. So what I had to do was basically build a lot of the basic scenery off the layout, and then install it, and then start climbing up there and getting all the more fine details in. The lighting, which I love how it came out, was a pain in the butt. That was very difficult to install because I had to drill the holes and run the wires, and then I was leaning over trying to get all the wires attached. There's a lot of work, and there's a lot of lights. And I still have a lot more to install on the structures and on the tanks and whatever else. But pretty good, as of right now. So I'm gonna just take you for a little tour here. I did a little weathering on this main building here. Got a little smoke up there. By the way, these smokestacks are basically toothpaste caps for that. I think it's Sensodyne that makes the caps like that. And get a little closer. Just that shape is perfect for this kind of a smokestack, which you've seen around that kind of shape for like vapor and things like steam that are coming out of the building. That's cool. I did a little weathering, as you can see here, and then I added this side little structure here that's got a lot of like the piping and the pumps, and I just tried to make it really busy. I have no idea what I'm actually showing here, like what this facility is actually doing with all that piping, but every time I see one of these on Google, there's just pipes everywhere, and a lot more than what you see here on this structure, but I thought that looks pretty good. And then I just added random things. So this is a PVC pipe adapter to go from like a bigger pipe to a smaller pipe, and I made that kind of like a stack. I made that dark gray thing out of just piping, square piping, tubing. The guardrail fell off of that, but that's that. This is just a leftover building thing that I made, like a garage thing. I had some extra parts, so I just made that. Those are actually like those power tablets that you put in your water. It's like electrolytes kind of thing that I use when I go biking. So those are the tubs. I just painted them and flipped them upside down and added those top things there, and then just piping, and I thought that came out pretty good. And then just PVC caps with some piping. This is a Walters thing, this tank. More PVC pipe and more PVC pipe. They're caps actually. Then I took some leftover piping that I had from another kid. I made that whole thing, that big long pipe here, which I had to attach to something eventually. And this is a 3D vehicle. I think it's a Suburban, like a 1970s or 80s Suburban, that I made a roof rack for. And there's a little maintenance guy here. There's a little compressor in the back that he's looking at, whatever he's trying to turn on. I put a little tank here. The fencing has the signs, so on and so forth. So I love the way this came out, and the only thing is that I had to put a switch or a turnout here, and it's so far away again, like it's so hard to reach back there, that I wanted to make sure that I could do it automatically. So I added a servo that's actually inside the blue building, and that pipe right there brings the piano wire over to the turnout. And so when I turn this knob here, it switches the turnout there. You can hear it clicking. There it goes. So that worked out nice with the servo as well. I've been using a lot of servos lately for things, and they do a nice job. So that's basically this section, which includes 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. All right, I'll be back with the next section. All right, so in this section, I'm showing you basically this whole stretch of track in the main level here. And it's your main road, kind of like your town. And there's a facility back there that we'll talk about in a second. The only thing I've changed here, I mean, nothing really has changed. I still have to finish all the stuff here. Is that the guardrails for the crossing were not working properly. I snapped the wire on this one, and that one wasn't working great. So I did some adjustments, and I got them to work nicely, except that somewhere along the line I overshot. This one's kind of pointing down, and so is the one in the back. So I gotta just adjust the wire, or put some kind of stopper somewhere so that it doesn't go that far down. It really should be sitting a little higher like that, but for some reason it's pushing it a little bit too far. So I just got to make that adjustment, and you know, aside from that, they're working really well, as you can see here. Going all the way up, and it's pretty smooth. There's not a lot of choppiness to it, and the ones over here never had any problems. So, oh, look at that! I spoke too soon. Look at that! That just happened. I guess I snapped that wire also. Yep, I have to fix that. All right, so. I guess I have more to do now. All right. I think what I might have to start doing is using a heavier gauge wire that's still flexible enough, because they're kind of snapping as they get used. I'll figure it out. All right. So nothing happened here, as I said. This parking lot was fairly new, but I've shown that before. And the paint facility here, which is split into all these structures here, is not new either. The lighting is all working nicely that I added here, and all the turnouts. I guess the only thing I did fix is that the servos here were being powered by a power source that wasn't, I guess it wasn't giving it enough power. It was still 5 volts, but maybe the amps were not high enough or whatever, so they were like doing this weird delay thing. They wouldn't turn over. So when I switched the power source, it automatically fixed everything. So I'm glad that's working. Obviously, I have to make this panel look more like this, and obviously smaller, because it's only four little buttons there. And those controls control all the paint facility turnouts. So it's the main line, 1, 2, 3 here, and this one up. Let me start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's basically it. So still some work to do. I got to finish some of the fencing and some of this, you know, again, roof details, things like that. And just add more vehicles and things like that. But pretty happy with how that's come out so far. All right, I'll be back with the next section. Okay, so in this section, basically I'm going to talk about this entire strip here on this side of the peninsula, and the mountain is what breaks everything from, you know, one side to the other. So obviously there's like a seam block here visually, But nothing new in the mountain. I do have to add more trees and things like that just to make it look a little more realistic. But that's going to take some time. And I have to also finish the ground cover here on the lip. I added this lip just as a safety, kind of like a border, but still making it look like part of the scenery. So I have to finish that, and I also have to create some kind of a plate here, because originally when I installed this tortoise, what I should have done was left the fascia board solid here and then just cut out from the bottom. But this is one of my first projects, and I did not know that much. So I was doing a lot of guesswork. So yeah, I'll probably just make some kind of panel here that detaches somehow. I'll figure it out so I can access that if anything goes wrong. All right, so here we go. This is lumber facility, middle of nowhere, and then your second mountain. That's basically all that's happening here. What's new in this section? Not really that much. This has been looking pretty good, and I haven't really done too much work to it. I'm not sure if I've shown that thing. I just made I took some sawdust and I made it look like a pile, 2 piles, and that's the only thing new there. But I still have to obviously incorporate this background with something. I gotta figure out what to do. And besides that, nothing really has happened here. Everything here is status quo. I have to either paint this or buy some kind of background, photo backdrop. For that, I'm looking to do a very simple building here because I do have a spur here that goes back, so I want to make sure that something is delivered there in a little facility. And everything else is good. A little dirty, but it's good. The water's holding up nicely. There's no cracks or bubbles or anything weird. I use the Envirotex light for this, and just simple olive green paint under it. But I thought that came out really nice, especially with that photo back there, which I just got online, just a piece of paper. But it had that greenish color to it, so I just incorporated that, and I added the boulders here to match the boulders in the picture. And that's basically all that's happening there. The abandoned house and the abandoned platform here, I've shown in other videos, so that's nothing new. I have to finish that, which I've been putting off for a long time because it's uncomfortable to get in there. So, but it'll happen. The only other thing that I wanted to show you was that the fascia on the last few videos ended here. So I was able to connect it and finish off all the fascia all the way around. So that'll take me to the next section that I'm going to show you. All right. So we are now at the harbor, or the seaport, and a bunch of new things, little things, but some big things, I guess, also. Starting with the scenery here. So you can probably tell because it's not as dirty, but this is a new section. All of this here, this is new. You see the line here, because this wasn't here. This fascia wasn't here yet. So when I added this, I had to put a piece of foam inside here, just cut it to shape, and then put the plaster on top to match this, paint it. But eventually it'll get as dirty as this, because I haven't really weathered this. It's just old, it's dirty. But at least we have some kind of solid look here, which I was craving for a while. So I'm glad I got that done. What else is new here? Not much as far as scenery. Meaning all the structures you see here, all the fake buildings in the back, all that stuff is old news. But I love the way it has come out. What I did do to add to the scenery was that I weathered this building a lot more. So this kind of transfer house is definitely a lot rustier and a lot dirtier than it was in past videos. And I did add a bunch of lighting, which I'm going to show you in a sec, to both that building and also the engine house for the apron. So that would be what would lift this ramp up or down. And those are the counterweights. These big concrete counterweights would offset the weight of the apron. So, but again, nothing really new as far as, you know, large structures on the boat or, you know, just the ship rather, or anything else. The biggest thing that I added was the control panel, which I, you know, again, I made it look a lot cleaner. I put the plexiglass in and the lighting and all that. So as you can see, each one of the toggle switches has a label on it. And I kind of came across this thing on Microsoft Word where you can make these little boxes. It was kind of like a mistake. But they do have a little reflection on the bottom here, which I thought looked kind of neat. And you can pick it up on the camera. So it looks a little 3D-ish. It looks like it's you know, like bigger and deeper than it really is. But you know, I thought this came out really nice with it being angled like that, and kind of you know, set into the backdrop, into the fascia board rather, so that it's not jutting out. So I'm happy with that whole thing. It was a pain in the butt to make, but I did accomplish, you know, some kind of a professional look here. And the nice thing is that this whole thing slides out. So if you need to do any wiring or adjustments or whatever, for example, this toggle switch here is not hooked up to anything, this gate, because I haven't attached the gate yet, so it's dead. So I will eventually have to pull that out and wire it. But let me just kind of take you through all these functions while I'm at it. I'll start with the lights because I was just talking about that. So this here, when I turn this on, it turns on all the lights in the facility. Starting with all the exterior lights of the transfer shed and the engine house. And also, I have lighting inside, which you can't see right now, but when you turn off the lights, it looks really nice. It's like a nice yellowish glow to that. So I added all those lights. That was kind of a pain, but I got it done. And then I also added, well, these ship lights were kind of in place already. I had one here, and then two from the main building here, and then a bunch inside for like there's like monitors in there, like control monitors, panels, I guess. But I'll show you that when it's, you can't see it right now. When it's dark, they stand out nicely. So that's the lights. The other thing I added, which was kind of neat, and I've had in my mind for a while, was that my ferry, I made these smokestacks here, but I wanted them to actually produce smoke. So let's see if they work. Look at that, they work. So as you can see, there's a little switch here that says smoke. So when I flip it up, what's happening is that there are two servos behind the wall, behind the port wall, that have two copper pins. I'm just going to turn it off for now. That what happens is they come out and they make contact with the ship. They come out just far enough to make contact with the ship, and there's two copper plates attached to the other side of the ship, which are then attached to the smoke makers for them to work, but they need 12-volt power. So what I did is, on those pins that are coming through with the servos, I soldered a piece of, you know, wire to each one, and then I just hooked it up to a 12-volt power source, and that's how that works. So I'll show you again. I bring the servos in, and then as soon as it gets a little warm, they just turn on. So I thought that was kind of neat. And I like that I can control it. And the nice thing is that you can still move the ship, and then when it lands here again, it you know, it's making contact every time. So I'm glad about that. The next button is your gate right here, which I have to install. That's not in yet. This is your lower apron. The apron is basically that ramp here. So I can either go down, up, or down. Oh, the down is, oh, there it goes. So as you can see, it's moving nice and slow. Look, it is moving. And that's how I get to the lower level of the ship. So it's going to take a while. I'm just going to stop it here for now. It's going to take a while. And then the next button is your upper apron. Same concept for the upper level. It's just that it's not dressed yet. It's just, you know, and it's bare bones right now. It's the same thing. A little noisier, but it's an up and down situation. There's a little motor here that's turning the apron and it's making it go up and down. So that's that. And then the final button here, or toggle switch, is your elevator. And that's what controls the ship. Once I load it with the cars, that's how I get to the upper level. I made a bunch of videos on this, so you can check that out there. But to show you real quick, it basically lifts the ship like that. So you can see that's how that works. All right, so that's basically all of the progress that I've made here in the Seaport. And you know, again, I'm pretty happy with how things are coming out. And now that I have the fascia in place, it definitely looks a lot more put together than it did before. All right, so I'll take you to the next section. Okay, so now we're in the upper level, and I guess lots has happened here, even though it seems like not much. The biggest thing is that I finally got the backdrop in place. It's glued to the backdrop, to the sky there. I cut it out so that so you don't have the other sky that it came with. And I also added grass and some ground cover to the bottom here. Now, it's actually a little dark right now because I just finished putting glue on there, so it looks a little dark, but it should be this shade when it dries. This is just gray grout, but that light gray is going to blend better with the backdrop color because right now it looks very dark. So I have to wait until that dries for that to show through. On this side of the upper level, it's just basically my grain elevator. I just have to finish, putting all the stuff together. This is just PVC pipe that's just sitting there bare. I haven't done anything to it, but it actually looks pretty good even without any paint or anything. But obviously I got to finish that up, make it look better. And the ground cover here. So that's in the future. So as my CSX train comes through here, I'll take you through what's happening. This is new, I think. I added this fascia to make it look a little bit more put together. You've seen these are the tracks in the back here for your grain elevator. One is just a siding kind of track where it goes through the elevator and out the other side, and the other one is just like a parking, storage track that just ends right there. So continuing on here, nothing really new, like I said, except the backdrop. This facility, I added a bunch of things to the back of it, but the front is pretty much the way it was. I am working on the fencing right now for the front part, but I finished it in the back, and it's what it's going to look like in the front once I'm done. But what I did here is I basically did a lot of scenery work. So a lot of the fencing, well, all of the fencing on the perimeter here, with the exception of the back here. I still have to add that. I put the gates in, some cement barriers to keep cars off the tracks and stuff. They're crossing bucks, one there and one here. And then the crossing kind of like wood planks there. Not crazy about the way that came out, but it's good enough, it works. And then I also added this set of 3 bays to separate like the, ballast type material from the sand and then from the dirt. I added a bunch of weeds and grass and things just kind of growing around the facility, as you can see. And then I took my my vehicles here and I weathered them, to make them look a little bit more beat up. I think I still need to weather this thing, the I don't know what it's called, front loader. I don't know. I have to weather that a little bit more to make it look a little bit more realistic. But besides that, everything else is the same way it was before, which I'm loving how this is looking also, overall. So that's it. Nothing else to report. All right, I'll take it to the next section. All right, so now we're on the other side of the peninsula on the upper level still. And this is basically just one facility in this entire wing. And I wanted it to be like that, similar to what's going on in the lower level, where there's not a lot going on. Just one little facility here that accepts, 1 or 2 or, a few cars. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'll figure it out eventually. But I haven't done too much to the scenery here. Everything's still kind of the same. I have to do a little work with the fencing once again. Paint this forklift and add the front part of it to it. But besides that, this has been untouched for the last month or so since I last worked on it. See, these are the bright yellow stoppers here. I have to weather those. They look ridiculous. But besides that, this is supposed to be just middle of nowhere kind of scenery. I've shown videos about, how I like to make these tunnels out of trees and watch the locomotives go through. It's kind of neat. Oh, actually, one's coming right now, so you can kind of see how that looks. It's pretty nice, in my opinion. So, yeah, the scenery is just supposed to be, just trees and forest and, a bridge here and there. So, I made that. This is supposed to be like a dried up river with mud and cracks and things. So, that came out pretty good. And that's basically all that's going to be happening in this entire wing. I do have to finish the fascia here and the scenery, more of this stuff there. But basically, this is still bare bones. And once I finish this, then I'll be able to get to the upper level harbor scene, which is going to look similar to what's going on down here, but a little simpler because I can't be climbing up there to control a lot of that stuff. So just a few storage tracks back there, nothing more, and that's it. The hull here, this has a cap that that goes in place when I'm not using it. But right now, I've been going up and down with it, so I left it out. All right, so that's basically all of the upper wing on this side of the peninsula, and that's all that's happened there. I'll take you to the next section in a minute. All right, so this is one of the only sections that I haven't done any track work on. It'll probably be the last section that I work on because right now I have all my control, my keyboard and stuff on here, and I'm running out of room to put things on. So I know people have suggested like carts with wheels and things like that, but I don't know. Right now, since I have the room, I'm just going to use it. I'll finish everything else up to a decent level, and then I'll start on this with the track work. So this is going to be basically my coal facility. It's the last little section. I have the spur already in place, turnout, and that's going to lead me into whatever tracks I decide to put here. That building obviously is going to be part of this facility, and I have no idea what's going to happen here yet. I just have the space to work with, and like I said before, I am using rented space from the yard over there, the two tracks here, just to, you know, store any cars that might be overflow from here. But that's basically it. Right now what I have is a temporary programming / cleaning track here, so that I can just, you know, throw my locomotives on there and clean them up, so I don't have to take them anywhere else. Or I just don't like putting a lot of alcohol and things on the actual scenery because it lifts the glue, and so that's why I have that in place. That's basically it. All right, I'll take you to the next section in just a bit. Okay, so we're back in the upper level here, and I wanted to show you this as the train comes through, because as you can see, it's heading over to the wall, and there's a hole there, and that's basically the turnaround loop so that the train can get back onto the layout. Now that room is basically, if you can see here, that's where the train is now. That room is got that loop inside of it, and that room is my bathroom. I'm just gonna walk you over. And my bathroom is not in use right now because it's not working. So what I did is that I created a temporary, not a temporary, but a detachable loop using just, you know, 2-inch foam and simple track work. Now, what the thing that's happening here is that, you know, this bathroom is dated and it's going to have to be torn out eventually. But I have time. I have a few years up here that we're not going to be doing any work, so I figured I might as well just do this before I have to tear down the whole layout anyway. This is the vanity, and what's neat about this is that when I take this out, this is being supported by, you know, the vanity itself right there, and also by these brackets that you can see right there, and those are collapse. They collapse. You know, they just kind of go flat up against the wall, so they're kind of out of the way, and you don't really notice them when they're not being used. But the nice thing about the vanity, sorry about the lighting, is that once I take this out, the vanity just slips right in, and you would never know that this was even here. It comes off in 2 seconds. It's basically just, you take this latch out, you unplug the RCA wire, which is the power to the track, and then basically the whole thing just lifts kind of like this and comes right out of the room. Obviously these go flat, and that's it. That's basically how I did that. And yes, I mean, the bathroom works, the toilet works, the sink works. What doesn't work is the shower, which is behind the door here. And it's just basically a closet right now. So you can see the train's going through it right now. It's coming out of the lift-out bridge on that side, and it's going into the harbor on this side. So the reason why that happened, when I cut a hole in the plastic shower, was because this shower was installed very poorly by the original owners. And when I bought this house and I gutted the main floor, there was mold all over the ceiling right under this floor, which is my kitchen. And so we tested it out before we put the new ceiling in. But we came to the conclusion, along with one of the experts, that when they installed this, they didn't make a foundation under it. So the floor moves when you step on it. And what's happening is every time you move the floor, it starts to crack the plumbing, or starts to move the plumbing. So the seals and everything eventually break, and we get water coming out of the floor here, right onto the ceiling downstairs. So again, this has to be a gut job. This has to be all ripped out, and we're actually gutting the whole entire upper floor here, second floor. So that's why I was like, you know what? If we're not using it for years and years and years, then what's to stop me from running my trains through the shower? I know it sounds extreme, but it's just a closet right now. Nothing's happening there. So all of this is eventually going to come to an end once once we get ready to rip up this upper floor. So in the time being, I'm gonna just live my life and enjoy this. All right, I'll take you to the next section. Okay, so this is the lift-out bridge that I was talking about, just a minute ago. And what's neat about this lift-out bridge, if you haven't seen my previous videos, is that the scenery comes right out. So this whole thing here just slides out, and you're left with this basic box with the 3 tracks, which is extremely easy to take out. I have the derailleurs there, which is what's creating the connection point, and it's also helping in case something happens here that it throws the train back in on the rails. Same thing on this side. But what's nice about this is that once you take that latch out and you take that latch out, all you got to do is unplug this, which has all the power and all the block detection cables all in there in one clip. It just pops out, and then the whole thing comes up and out, and then I just hang it up here. So that's basically all there is to that. So that's my lift-out bridge. And then the scenery, basically, I hang in the closet. Let me show you the closet real quick, because that's where the tracks are coming through anyway. So this is how that works. I've shown this again in other videos. So the tracks just basically go through. Can't see because the lighting is not there, but it goes around and then out. But the closet is still being used, and you can still hang clothes here if you want to or whatever. But I just have it as storage. And eventually, if we do put any coats or anything here, what I might do is just encase it with like plexiglass so that it doesn't knock over the trains when the coats are there. But again, it's useful space anyway, just the trains are running through it. And the other thing I've done is that I've created these dummy light plates. So that when I don't have this in place, this just pops right in. So you can't even tell that there's really a hole there. You have to really look at it. So I have one for that side and then one for this side. But you can see it pops right into this frame. And that's it. So lift-out bridge. Sorry about the towel there. That's just blocking the AC from escaping. And then the closet area, which spits out right where I showed you before, where the coal facility is, right here. That's the entrance to the closet. All right, almost there. Okay, so this is the last thing I wanted to show you before I turn off the lights and show you all the lighting that I've done around the layout. And the iPads that I have mounted here on the wall are basically being held up by these little clips, which are nice and thin. And you could just slide the entire iPad out, just like that, if you want to use it for whatever reason. But what I have is I have it plugged in so that it's constantly being charged. This way it doesn't run out while I'm using this for the layout. But what I've done is that I've hooked it up to JMRI through web server. So this is talking to JMRI through Wi-Fi, and what's nice about this is that you can control the turnouts right from here. So what I do is, for example, if I'm working in this general area here, and I want to switch, that turnout right there, well, you look at this and you're like, well, it's kind of hard to get my finger in there. So what I do is I zoom in. See, it says lumber there? That's the turnout. So all I gotta do is press it. You hear the tortoise going off, and then it switches. And obviously it switches there. So let's just do it one more time so you can see what's going on. So right now it's closed. I'm gonna press it one more time. Again, you can move this around any way you want. And then when I click on it, it switches over. Now, sometimes there's a little delay because the Wi-Fi, it all depends on how strong the Wi-Fi is. And then, let's see if this is actually, yep, see, it's thrown. So I have the same situation on the other side of the layout. I'm just walking around. And here's my second iPad. So again, it's the same situation, but you know, like let's say I want to work on the Y. I want to switch something there. You know, I have this option of just zooming in, and if I want to throw this turnout here, you can see it closed. So let's see. And you can see that that's also closed. So it's nice because, let's say somebody's working here while they're doing a session, or I'm just standing here at the time. I don't have to walk all the way over to the computer and throw my turnout there. I could either, I can, but I could also do it here. Or if I know the number of the turnout, I could do it through the Y throttle as well. So that particular turnout is 111. So if I just hit 111, it throws it. But it's easier to just push the turnout on the map than it is to have to, find the thing on the Y throttle to type in the number and all that stuff. So I find that to be a nice little option. Also, I can use this as a throttle, or as any kind of control for anything that I want, as long as it's hooked up to JMRI. So that's nice also, if you want to use it in that situation. So that's it. The last thing I want to do is show you the lights that I've installed. So I'll be back for that.